Look around. This world is not as it ought to be. Division, disease, discrimination, things are not okay. But this is not how it was intended, and God was not okay with it. He had to make a way back from darkness to light, from death to life. So he dropped a man into this atmosphere, like an explosion of hope and like a billion fireworks lighting up the darkest night. He revealed the better way, the best way, the only way to truly live. He came to revive a dying world and divided cultures, to revive despairing hearts and desperate lives, to revive us all. Things are not okay. We need revival.
Okay, I am not, I repeat, not a good sick person. I'm actually a pathetic sick person. When my throat gets a little scratchy, if my stomach starts to feel off, I get a runny nose, maybe a headache. Whenever my body goes from a place of being okay to not okay, it's more than just a physical problem for me. Somehow there's this internal switch that gets flipped and I just revert back to my 3-year-old self who just can't cope with life. It literally, when I'm sick, takes a feat of strength for me to do more than reach for the remote and remind Netflix, yes, I am still watching Stranger Things.
Susie, do you copy? Susie, do you copy? Susie, do you copy?
This is Susie. I copy.
Susie!
Dusty Bun? Dusty Bun.
You know, I've discovered that guys having bad attitudes about being sick seems to be the norm. Females, however, different story. It seems like when you get sick, maybe you sleep in a little bit, maybe you take a quick nap, and maybe you take a couple Tylenol, but next thing you know, you'll be back on your feet in no time. And I mean, nothing, ladies, nothing is going to stop you from firing off TikToks, kind of like the girl from this video.
Be poppin', heard you get it poppin'. Why you so obsessed with me?
All right, that girl cracks me up. She's awesome. We all have things that aren't okay about our lives. Think about it. Maybe it's something silly like I mentioned, like I'm bad at being sick. But I bet if you're honest, you've got things in your life that are truly not okay, and they go a lot deeper than just my example. For some of us, it's the constant anxiety that we feel. Some of us, we've experienced real loss, pain, even maybe the death of someone that's been close to us. Some of us have parents that are separated right now, maybe divorced. Some of us deal with legit physical illness. Many of us have bad habits that we just can't seem to stop. Some of us are angry. Maybe we feel alone, left out, sad. Every single one of us at some level, we know what it's like for things to be not okay. And listen, it's okay to be not okay. But the big idea I want each of you to understand today goes like this. It's not okay to stay that way. It's not okay to stay that way. Why? Well, there's only really one reason. It's because Jesus is real, and Jesus came to revive. Jesus is the answer to what's really not okay in our lives. He doesn't want us to stay this way. And I'll prove it to you by sharing with you a story from Jesus in the Bible. It's found in the Gospel of John, chapter 5, and it starts like this. After these things, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now, this is a huge city, and check out what's going on. In verse 2, it says, "Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porticos or 5 giant columns. In these lay a multitude of those who were sick, blind, lame, and withered, waiting for the moving of the waters." Now, hold on a sec. What's that? Moving of the waters stuff. Well, legend had it that an angel had once come down from heaven and stirred up the water of that very pool. And it just so happened that a sick person happened to touch the water after the angel left, and the person was immediately healed. Therefore, people who were often sick during this time would gather waiting for the same thing to happen again. And I just want you to know, students, this is probably nothing more than a silly legend. Like when you look at what Bible scholars think of this passage, there's really no historical proof that this actually happened. But nonetheless, this pool was a natural hangout spot for sick people, and all of them are there waiting on a miracle. Let's see what happens next. Verse 5. A man was there who had been ill for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been a long time in that condition, he said to him, "Do you wish to get well?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up, but while I'm coming, another steps down before me." Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your pallet and walk." Immediately, the man became well. He picked up his pallet and began to walk. Now, this is a crazy story. There's so much going on here. So what I want to do is just point out 3 observations that have just jumped out to me as I've studied this story. So observation number 1 goes like this. The sick people were distracted by something silly and didn't realize that someone significant was among them. All these people, they were all busy looking at the water, waiting on a miracle. And little did they know that Jesus, the miracle maker, was among them. Students, sometimes when things aren't okay in life, we'll all look to silly things for answers. You know, some of us will look to friends for answers when we're really struggling. Some of us will just watch more YouTube, play some more Call of Duty, and maybe all of that will just help us forget about what's not okay. Some of us will experiment with dating to feel better. Or maybe we'll just play more sports to drown out our emotions, or we'll just bury ourselves in school. But listen, it's not that any of those things are bad things. They're just not things that provide answers to what's not okay in our lives. See, only Jesus has answers for those things. Jesus wants to help, but if you're just constantly distracted, you'll miss him. Just like so many missed him that day by the pool. Here's my next observation from the story. Jesus only healed one sick person by the pool that day. And I just find this very interesting because it's not like Jesus didn't have options. He had dozens of potential miracles that he could have performed by the pool, but instead of putting on a big show, Jesus focused in on one. One man, one miracle. Which makes me just wonder, why this one guy? Well, here's a thought. In verse 5 of John, the author makes a note that this man was sick for 38 years. 38 years. I did the math on that. That's 13,870 days of living not okay. And I'm not sure what his illness was. But whatever it was, it had somehow probably crippled him. And we're not just talking about physically, but on the inside as well. You see, his sickness had defined him in his community as someone who was unworthy, someone who's invaluable, and this had been his story for most of his life. And my guess is that there are students watching right now, and you can relate. Because for a while now, you've had to deal with something that's just not okay. And maybe you were left out by friends that you once trusted. Maybe it has to do with your family. Maybe someone has hurt you and you've never really been able to escape that pain. And it just feels hopeless. Even now, you can relate with the guy in the story. Those feelings of being unworthy or invaluable. But you know what? Just like Jesus stopped and saw this one man, Jesus sees you. In a crowd of people, Jesus would stop for you. You're not overlooked by Jesus. You're not missed. He sees you. You may feel unworthy, but in Jesus' eyes, you are worth everything. And Jesus wants to revive what's not okay in your life. He calls you his daughter, his son, and he wants to give you hope and a future that's worthwhile. Here's my last observation. Observation number 3 says, before Jesus healed the man, he asked him a question. Do you remember the question? It's found in verse 6. Jesus said to the man, "Do you wish to get well?" What a strange question. Why would Jesus ask a dude who's been sick for 38 years if he wants to get well? I wonder if it was because Jesus knew that this man was basically out of hope. That after 38 years of waiting on a miracle, he was just about to give up. So Jesus is just checking, is there any hope left? Students, I believe Jesus would ask us the same question as we deal with things in our life that's not okay. Do you wish to get well? In other words, do you have hope that Jesus can revive what's not okay in your life? And as you consider that question, I just want to remind you, don't let silly things distract you from the most significant person of all time, Jesus. And though you may feel alone in the crowd, you're not forgotten. Jesus sees you, and he understands what's not okay in your life, and he cares. In fact, he has answers for what you need most. The question is, do you want to get well? And do you have hope that Jesus truly can revive? As we finish up, the band is going to play a unique song, and I think you'll catch on pretty quickly. It has so much to do with what I've been talking about. And I just want you to stay in your seats, and I want you to think about anything in your life, anything that's currently not okay. And I want you to consider trusting Jesus with whatever that is. He does have answers. There is hope because only Jesus revives.